Okay, everyone, well, welcome to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ross, and with me this evening is Leah Piper and Dr. Willow Brown, founders of the Sex Reimagined Podcast. Did I get that name of the podcast right, ladies?
You
You
sure
certainly
did.
did.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, ladies, for taking the time to speak with me on my show. Uh, I want to get right down into it. Sex Reimagined. How'd you guys come up with that idea?
Well, we are both sexperts from a couple decades back. So, Leah's been teaching in the tantric space for many, many years, and I've been teaching in the Taoist space for a long time. So,
Hmm.
both come from ancient tradition, sacred sexual practices. And so, we thought, well, if we're going to do a collaboration and a podcast together, we want it to inspire people to reimagine what is possible inside of sexuality because so often we are brought up to understand that sex is all about like get it in, get it off, and get it out as quick as you can and get to the goal of an orgasm, like it's goal oriented. And so in our realm and in what we've been teaching for so long, we really like to take the goal off so that you can actually be more present, more curious, and explore and experience a lot more. So we debated actually on the name of our podcast because,
Yeah.
putting sex in the name of your podcast makes it very difficult to post on social media and things of that nature. So we did debate, but ultimately we decided to go with Sex Reimagined because it's really all about reimagining what sexuality is. Like I have sexual experiences with nature all the time. Eco-eroticism is a real thing. And so there's just all kinds of possibilities that when we just don't know, we just don't know. And so our work and our podcast really opens up people's minds to the vast arrays of what intimacy can actually be.
So you're going beyond just the visual and the physical.
Way beyond.
I see. Uh, how do you have an intimate moment with nature, as you said a minute ago?
Yeah, so just as I might have an intimate moment with a person where I'm breathing together, I'm attuning with that person, I'm moving in unison with the ebb and flow and the expansion and the contraction of their energy system, their nervous system, their breath rate, their heart rate, their energetic body. I'm tuning into all of those different pieces. And I do the same thing with the ocean and I do the same thing with the trees, and I can really feel, I like to practice Qigong. So that's sort of how I practice being in union with nature, but there's so many
Hmm.
ways to do it.
Hmm. Okay. Leah, are you in unison with the good
She's not
doctor?
quite as much an eroticist as I am.
Yeah,
She
not
does
not
Let's
practice in
not to
all
the
let's
different
degree
go,
ways.
as
man.
Dr.
Let's go.
Willow. But I think what is not focused on enough in our awareness and in our culture when it comes to sex is the beauty that we find in nature, and we can find that same beauty in lovemaking. We can find that same experience of awe. There are these experiences in nature where our breath gets taken away, an amazing sunset or a sunrise, or just feeling the magnitude of the ocean and how big it is and how overpowering it is when we think about our own ability, right? The ocean could just swallow us up, and sometimes that just generates so much awe. Being in a beautiful ancient forest, there's all these experiences when we are out in nature that restores us, that makes us remember how precious life is and how beautiful life is. And
Hmm.
sex has the same exact capability. And so there's something that really is beautiful about nature and lovemaking, and they're much like each other. And so it's a reminder to slow down, take in your environment, make your environment beautiful as a devotional act for your partner, to really cherish each other, to be really present with each other's bodies, and to be dedicated to each other's pleasure. When we look at Tantra, a lot of people in your audience may not know, well, what is this word Tantra?
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask.
Yeah, so like Willow said, it is this both Taoism and Tantra come from this ancient mystery schools that originated in the East. They're thousands of years old. And from the Tantric perspective, it was a way for householders, basically just normal people having families. It was a way for them to reach enlightenment without having to go to the caves or the monastery to become a monk or to become celibate. It was seen that sexual energy is so potent and so powerful, both in its ability to be destructive, but also in its ability to raise one's consciousness, that if you were to consciously explore it, and do these practices, these cultivation practices, you could actually raise your consciousness to become more one with your God. And in this modern times, that's however your belief system is. It's not a dogma, it's not a religion, it's a path of cultivation. So let me throw out another metaphor to explain this. It's a way of seeing your body as an instrument. If you are a musician, you practice your music so that when you get together with the band, you're making some amazing music. So Tantra has two sides to it. There's a solo practice where you work on your meditation and you work with your breathing, and you might practice yoga. You might practice your solo practice of self-pleasuring so that you can increase your capability to make love longer because you understand how your body works. So that when you come to practice with someone else, you take sex and you turn it into an art form. And so Tantra is the great beautifier of sex. It has a lot of emotional awareness and a lot of awareness towards the senses. And so it's the study of that. It's the study of making love an art form.
You mentioned self-pleasure. How can someone like myself, for example, evolve on a deeper level in terms of getting connected to my inner self and raising that self-awareness as to what pleases me and what doesn't?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And when we look, we're looking through the lens of the word tantra is a Sanskrit word. It means a weaving of expansion, so a tool for expansion. And so tantric practices, as Leah was mentioning, might be certain breathing practices, certain ways of moving your body. The Taoist tradition, it really sees your sexual energy as medicine for your whole body. So you're actually weaving and expanding into a greater state of health and vitality by playing with your own sexual energy. And so a self-pleasuring session, AKA masturbation, but we don't call it masturbation. We call it self-cultivating or self-pleasuring because you're actually getting closer and closer to yourself with a capital S. So we've got our ego self, and, being full of that egoic self is maybe considered a bad thing in our society, but becoming more full of your essence, which is your true self with a capital S, that's getting closer and closer to your true essence. And you can really do that and play with that through your exploration of your body. So you've got all these pathways, we call them nadis in Tantra, N-A-D-I. We've got all these meridians, which we talk about in the Taoist tradition. So we've got all these different pathways or lines of energy that run along our muscular system. They run along the inside seam of our body, the outside seam of our body, and all of these pathways in our body, when we start to run higher levels of arousal through these pathways, we discover, oh, wow, I can have a heartgasm. Oh, wow, I could have a pineal gland gasm, like the pineal gland up in the middle of the brain. What would that be like rather than just having a genital orgasm, as Leah often will say, a sneeze in the groin. Those genital orgasms, they can come quick and fast and be over before you know it. And so what we're doing with these practices is we're really learning how to move arousal chi or arousal energy to just all the different nooks and crannies of our bodies so that we can experience more full body orgasms.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on what Willow was saying, um, in terms of answering your question around, well, how can someone, take a look at self-pleasure and use it to evolve, right? Because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems pretty like, we all kind of have our style of getting off. And by looking at it through this lens, we're really starting to study our pleasure. How can we take what is normally felt at the tip of clitoris or at the tip of a penis and send that arousal to other parts of the body? And then also share that arousal with a partner so that it amplifies their arousal. So, a lot of people kind of just know one way to get off. And then that's their go-to way. And what we're inviting people to explore is actually there's so many ways to get to these states that are filled with pleasure. And if we take a look at pleasure differently, most of us were raised to see sex as something that was dirty, shameful, something to be afraid of, something that was dangerous, something that gets you in trouble. So we've got all this like conditioning that talks about sex being kind of bad. And that kind of weighs down part of our ability to be sexually liberated and to feel really free, to have all the pleasure that our creator wired us for. So this is like an invitation to discover your own wiring and to expand the circuitry of what your body can feel.
Mm.
And we first help people understand that we each have an arousal scale from 1 to 10. 1 being, I could get in the mood, right? 10 being, if you're a man, I've ejaculated. So if we'll just stick with penis owners right now, most men will go from a 5, a 6, or a 7, and then jump to 10. Men with little or no control will go from like a 2 to a 10. And then you have men who struggle going over the edge, especially with a partner. They might be able to do it in self-pleasuring, but ejaculating is actually kind of difficult. And they might hover at like a 4 or 5. What do all of them have in common? Everyone is missing 8 and 9. And 8 and 9 is a part of arousal where all the profundity exists. It's where we start to experience more cosmic or transcendent states of pleasure. So in order to reach 8 and 9, you've got to slow down and first discover, well, what does it feel like at a 2? Who am I at a 3? How good is a 4? Oh my God, I'm gonna come soon if I get to a 5.5, which also means every number on the scale has a 1 through 10. So now we're slowing it way down. Who are you at a 1.1? What does it feel like at a 3.7? How awesome is a 4.2?
Or a
And
9.9. Can you
9.9.
hang out at the 9.9?
Yeah, so we're on a journey of discovery when we look at our pleasure this way. And our
Fireworks.
goal, and look,
That's right.
and
How
I
long can you hang there?
and I've got a great metaphor for what 8 and 9 feel like. But a lot of people want to rush to 8 and 9, right? Because that's what feels like the adventure and the thing that's undiscovered. But we also want to discover all these other numbers and not to be in a hurry. So in order to reach these higher states, you got to have some skills. You've got to learn how to come back from the edge of the waterfall when you're about to go over. And so there are different pressure point techniques and different breathing techniques, and different ways with being with your partner, so that sex isn't just we go up to the peak and then we come down to the valley. Sex ends up being a ride that you take your lover on. We're going on a journey. And so that's just a snapshot of why someone might want to practice their solo practice through self-pleasuring, so that they can get really good at like ejaculatory control. So they can get really good at slowing things down. So they can find their favorite techniques and discover their best breath in order, when they do have an orgasm, to make it last 4 times longer. So Tantra teaches all of these fascinating skills.
So basically, if I'm having an orgasm, I can make it last
You can make it last
in
and
20
last.
seconds, man.
Well, so let's talk
Extended-
about that.
Expanded orgasm. Yeah.
Yeah, the anatomy of the average
Yeah,
male
yeah.
orgasm is 5 seconds long. You have 2.5 seconds going up to the peak, and you're not ejaculating yet. you go into the world of climax, and that first 2.5 seconds of rising the peak of your orgasm, you're actually not ejaculating. It's at the 2.5 second point where you start to feel those muscular contractions that start to pull the fluid and push it forward. And that is what sexologists say is the point of ejaculatory inevitability. And then at that
It's going to
point,
happen.
it's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
At that point, you have another 2.5 seconds to come down the valley, and then you're kaput. Your body has to restore itself. It has to actually recover before that next erection can appear, and so that you can have another ejaculation. And as men get older, that refractory period gets wider and wider. So there's techniques that help men recharge faster. So one of the things that we teach men is how to separate ejaculating from orgasm, which means you can then learn to have the ability as a man to be multi-orgasmic without ejaculating, so that you don't have to be burdened by that refractory period. So there's a way with which you can rewire your system, again, to have full body non-ejaculatory orgasms. How many orgasms do you want? And then how to take that average 5-second orgasm when you do ejaculate. There are very simple techniques that can have you quadruple the length, the power, and the intensity of every ejaculation by having what we call a conscious come.
Sounds pretty good, huh, Mark? I have a question for you, Mark. I'm just curious, like, is this blowing your mind? Have you heard of this before?
But in a good way. I mean, don't get it twisted. This is some good info.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no one knew to taught us this.
Nobody taught us this
generations
shit.
before us.
Oh.
We
Yeah,
don't
sex
get a
ed.
great sex
Dad,
education.
what the hell?
No,
Right.
and porn definitely doesn't teach it to us. So
Yeah, I'm a little mind blown. I mean, and we haven't even tapped to the conversation yet, but I'm a little. You guys are educating me because, yeah, like most guys, I mean, we tend to go for I think as a man, we tend to think of the end result as the goal,
right.
and we don't think about the journey to the goal.
Right. Yeah. And that if you do get to the goal, then you achieved and you have,
Or a success.
you are a successful lover. You have hit the goal. And so that's really that's the masculine paradigm of our entire society, right? So there's these words in the Taoist tradition, yin and yang, right? Yang or yang, people say yang,
Yeah.
but yang is like, it's the masculine or the structure, the bright, the expansive. The yin is the feminine or the stillness, the darkness. And so much of our world and what we've grown up with around sexuality and everything else is very goal oriented. What did you achieve? What's your status? How much money are you making? Do you have a good job? Oh, that's good. Oh, good, good, good. We orient to good and bad. So we're constantly in this dualistic mind frame of life that, I mean, we just are swimming in it. You're going to get wet because we're all in it. But these practices really give you the opportunity to let go of the concepts of good and bad, right and wrong, black and white, yin and yang, and let go of the goal, let go of being a success, let go of the outcome or what it means to be a good sexual performer as a man or a woman, and actually just get into a state of presence. Because when we're really, really in that curious present state, we can discover things about ourselves and about our bodies that we can't discover if we're looking myopically for an orgasm.
Yeah, I think too, when the goal is orgasm, and so most couples are going to find themselves in this trap, we create a pass fail. It's either, did everyone come? And if everyone didn't come, then there's a problem. And oh my God, if there's a problem, then we're in trouble. And then there's something to fix. And then, we feel like we're failing. And then we question our whole relationship. It can get really intense for couples who are struggling with the sexual part of their dynamic. And so one of the things we love to remind people of, especially when we're teaching them all these techniques, because we teach a lot about orgasm. I mean, I got more techniques about how to have better orgasms, a different kind of orgasms, and all these different erogenous zones. I mean, it's like we got books that we could just fill and fill just about the art of orgasm.
Okay.
But if you make sex about orgasm, you're missing the boat to bliss. And if you make sex about love, the orgasms will follow. And that doesn't mean that you have to be in love with the person who you're having sex with in order to practice Tantra and see this as an art form. There are these different distinctions of what kind of love are we sharing. For people who are in a committed long-term relationship, they're going to be exploring the emotion of love. For people who are just exploring sex and connection, but they're not necessarily in a committed relationship, they're going to be exploring the energy of love. And so we use love as a cornerstone of what we're all seeking as human beings. And how can I bring my essence, and everyone's essence is love. How can I share that nature so that this marvelous thing that our bodies can do can be shared in such a thoughtful and meaningful and impactful way? Because the thing that I know I wasn't raised with, but that I now have come to understand, is that this thing called pleasure, this thing called orgasm, this thing called lovemaking and sex, I believe it was designed to help relieve us from the parts of life that are really hard. I mean, there's not a human being that doesn't get faced with obstacles on a regular basis, that doesn't feel stress or isn't, managing a crisis every few days. So to be able to have a place, a renewable resource that's built into your body called pleasure, and to go get filled and to be there for someone else so that they can be filled. I mean, what a gift. It helps balance the score for the parts of life that are, dramatic, difficult.
So for women, I mean, we talked about men, but as women, I'm talking to two. What is the ultimate? Again, the goal is to orgasm, but for women, is it the journey that makes it more exciting?
Makes it fulfilling.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think about, like, instead of, taking orgasm and even penetration as goals, taking those off of the table. It's like when you get together with somebody new, it's like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to have sex with them yet. So, okay, we can just go this far. And there's so much more anticipation and there's so much more like exploration. The kissing lasts way longer. But you've been with someone for a long time. It's like, okay, yeah, you're like, a little bit of kissing and let's fuck,
Yeah.
and it just goes, you miss so much of the
tease
exploration.
here and there.
Right. A lot of times there's no
Hurry
kissing at
up.
all.
Yeah,
Claps
exactly.
on the shoulder. And,
Hurry up, come and roll over and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's this is why with couples I'm always guiding them to at least twice a month, on the full moon and the new moon. I like to do why? Because the energy ebbs and flows. It's the yang and the yin, right? Expansion and contraction. So that's my worldview. And
Right.
so on the new moon, that's a great time for the women to receive, because it's a little bit more yin, it's a little bit more receptivity for her. A lot of women are not great receivers. A lot of men are not great receivers. Again, it's not part of our societal construct to be good at surrendering, receiving, allowing, and trusting. It's more about like going out and getting and making happen. That's what's valued. And so when we take some time to just separate out the giver and the receiver, this is one of the brilliant things that Tantra really brings to the table, is you get a whole maybe 90 minutes, an hour or 90 minutes, possibly even longer, to just receive touch on all these different places on your body. And we've got our primary erogenous zones, which we all know are the genitals, the nipples, the ass, the tongue. But then we've got these secondary erogenous zones, which are like the inner wrists, anywhere there's a flexible joint in the body, backs of the knees, behind the ears, inner ankles. And then we've got all these tertiary tertiary erogenous zones, which is another conversation. So I'll save that. But, we've got a map of pleasure all over our body. And if you take goal of orgasm or intercourse off the table, you're a lot more likely to discover the beautiful natural places on your body that are filled with so much sensation.
The vast array. Yes.
It's a vast array. And so it's great for men too to be in the receptive role, because it allows them to experience touch in a new way and giving in a new way. And then these kind of like sessions or intimacy dates that you might have with just a buddy or with your long-term partner, these give you different information for all the other encounters that you have throughout the rest of the month, even beyond sexual encounters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm now recalling your original question, like about women and what's in it for women, like
Yeah, basically,
this.
yeah.
I think women want to orgasm just as much as men want to orgasm.
Okay.
I think women are less attached to the end goal. Women can feel extremely satisfied having sex and making love without an orgasm. It's the closeness. It's the presence. What makes a really great lover is someone who's really there with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think women crave intimacy, but I also think men crave intimacy. I mean, the truth is we all have the same parts. We're just organized a little differently. And our conditioning tends to kind of separate us into these categories of like what men like, what women like. But the truth is we're more alike than we are different. And what each person needs to discover for themselves is what opens them. A lot of us are good at telling someone what closes them. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. But we're not very good at saying what I would really love, or what really turns me on, or I really like it when, or would you mind doing this, or could you slow down, or could you take it deeper, or would you be more shallow, or could you tickle my inner thigh just like this? Ooh, even slower. So we have to actually learn how to use our communication and language to be able to teach someone how to love us. Like, here, you want a map to my body? I figured it out. Let me show you. And most of us don't actually, most women in particular, do not
Men too.
To really know what's this map?
Right.
How can I teach you how to open me? And if you don't go on that as a personal journey, you're not going to have a map to share. And then sex alone is hard to talk about. People really clam up. They get super uncomfortable and awkward because shame bubbles up. So it's like we have to kind of peel back some layers in order to, again, the word that Willow keeps using beautifully is curious. Aren't you curious about how to get turned on and stretch it out and make it juicy? And so
I like to think about human bodies also as like puzzle pieces. And there's so many fun ways that we can fit our puzzle pieces together that we just don't think about. Like, when was the last time someone put their nipple on the bottom of your foot? It's really stimulating. It feels great. Try it at home.
Look at Mark. If you guys are watching this, you should see Mark right now.
Mark. He's like, never. I've never had that.
No.
Good times. Good times. I like to think about our fingers, our nipples, our penis, like different parts of our bodies as paintbrushes, right? Even this is a roller. So we're just painting. Like, your partner is the canvas for your art to go on. So it's great to use oil because then you're actually painting something, and you're just painting their whole body with different parts of your body, and it just becomes like, wow, who knew that a nipple on the bottom of the foot or the back of the knee could be so damn hot?
Yeah, and like when we're talking about men and women, actually, this is an important piece. Women take longer to get warmed up. Women need more anticipation. They need those, like, undress me from across the room with your eyes first. if you want to turn me on. You know, come in and just like get close, bring, you know, not even touching me yet, but let me feel you, get closer to my back, and then have you just kind of nuzzle the back of my neck. How you hold my hand can be a turn on. You remembering to send me those sexy text messages throughout the day. These are all things that people naturally do when they're courting one another.
And then
Right?
they stop.
And then they
Why?
stop.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
did they stop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
The
there's a
most
difference.
important sexual organ is right between your ears, right? It's way more important than the one between your legs. So you got to get that one stimulated.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Oh, I
your
got
brain
this.
is the biggest sex organ, definitely.
Yeah.
So you
Oh,
got to
I-
get it engaged.
yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're worrying, fantasizing, thinking about the list and what's going to happen next, you're not in your body. So the other thing is encountering your body. And bodies hurt. There's a lot of people who feel uncomfortable in their bodies, feel awkward in their bodies, don't feel at home, or feel ashamed, or don't like their bodies, or don't think their bodies look attractive. That's going to affect how good of sex you get to experience when you feel like icky in your skin.
Yes.
So this brings about the other thing that Tantra in particular addresses is the need for sexual healing. Is the need for us to actually soften the parts where we have hardened, where we are afraid to be seen, and find ways to be courageous and curious to start to unblock our ability that pushes pleasure away. For the I mean, we have so many reasons, valid reasons why we might do that, why we don't feel good in our skin. And so to be able to address those things and heal those things so that you can feel free and liberated is another really important part of this sex reimagined journey.
You guys touched on some really good points, because part of the journey for some people is feeling comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
How can I give pleasure mentally and physically to somebody, and I can't even I can't get it for myself.
Right.
I don't know how to get it because I have a very negative view
About your own body.
of how I feel and what I
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Self-image,
Yeah,
sure.
this
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
this
Exactly.
becomes such a really like fine-tuned, nuanced thing as well. So yes, it is one thing to learn how to love your body as it is right now today, rather than I'm going to love my body when I lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to love my body when I get in better shape. I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when. That's part of our societal construct too. It's like happiness is always dependent on something outside of ourselves, instead of just like filling ourselves with love as we are, as things are right now. So acceptance is a huge piece of the tantric path, acceptance to a path of love. And this, journey into knowing your own pleasure pathways, knowing the own map of pleasure in your body, it allows you to be more attuned to your own body. And, this is something I've been teaching men lately, and it's a little more nuanced, but I think it's worth mentioning, which is, there's so much of like, okay, I'm turned on, my cock is hard, I'm horny, I'm ready to go. Now let me direct that energy at you, get you turned on, horny, and ready to go. And in a, maybe it's an authentic way, but there's still an element of like, I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to put this energy out at you, rather than just actually feeling your own pleasure, staying attuned to the sensation in your own body, and even using that sensation and pleasure in your own body to rub up against another person's body. That's going to be so much more connective to the other person, because they're going to feel like, wow, you're really holding and owning your own pleasure and your own turn on, and you're sharing it with me in this, in this rub, in this way, and I can feel that, and now I can access my own turn on and my own arousal. So this way, two partners who are dancing together are both dancing inside of themselves, inside of their own bodies and inside of their own systems, and and as they come together, they're coming together in wholeness, and that's how a really beautiful tantric union gets to be created, that that causes that higher consciousness, and that that those esoteric experiences that tantra touts.
Okay. Okay. About the self-esteem piece, though, has any one of you ever had to talk to someone who said, "Hey, I don't feel so positive about myself." Um,
Oh, we've never met anyone who feels that way, Mark. I don't know. Do you know people who feel that way? Yeah, all the time.
I'm just, I'm just, I mean, I don't know. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm just
we
blown
get
away by it.
we get people who are really not feeling confident in their bodies, much less in their capabilities around sexuality, and we've been there too. I mean, we totally get it. We're not, we
Yeah,
come from the world of that we all come from, so it is a
indeed,
journey.
indeed.
Leah, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I got it. I don't think there's anyone that hasn't, in those moments, maybe in the middle of the night, where you're just with yourself and you really doubt your worthiness. You doubt whether you're worthy of love. You doubt that you're lovable.
Mm,
I think we feel really isolated when we are feeling that way. We think we're the only ones that ever feel this crushing, loathing feeling. But the truth is I think that's a part of the human experience.
Everyone feels that way. Yeah.
And I know through when I first started to do this work, it was the first thing I really had to tackle because I really hated myself. I mean, the things I would say to myself in my head are things I would never say to an enemy. I was cruel. That inner critic was so cruel. And I wrestled with being overweight for 25 years, and just felt so uncomfortable in my skin, felt so uncomfortable being naked, really doubted my desirability, and then would go so far as to diminish, lead with desire, but what I really wanted was love. And then I would just kind of get I'd get a lover, but they never wanted to fall in love with me. And then that just validated that I was worthless. I mean, it's just this roller coaster of pain.
hmm
And
hmm
so I think
hmm
I think most people have a chapter of that in their life. Some people it's a lifelong chapter, but it is something that can be overcome because when you come into a place of recognizing that your essence is sacred, then there's a part of you that can no longer keep doing war with yourself. And so you learn to quiet the inner critic voice. You discover that there's a dial, a volume, and you can turn that inner critic down and you can turn up a new voice that is benevolent and loving and sees you as this divine spark in the world. And when you learn to cherish that voice and turn that volume up, you can program yourself to see yourself differently. And when you do that, you'll start to notice that the world sees you differently too. So the world starts to reflect back to you your worth when you start to own it. And there are actual practices of sexual healing that can get you to that place so that you have something actionable to create that transformation. It's not just something you do with your head where you try to
Right.
think your way to it. In order to achieve a sense of real self-esteem, it's something you have to do physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, emotionally. You have to get that love into your system in order to actualize it.
Okay. Okay. I felt that.
Yes.
I felt that. I
Yes.
felt that. And the reason why I asked is because people use I'm not going to say people use their lack of self-esteem, but because they have a low self-esteem, they think that sex or giving their bodies away is the answer to the problem, and it would
Mm-hmm.
make people like them if they gave themselves to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
Yeah.
as we all know, that doesn't happen. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? We
Mm-hmm.
may, if I encounter someone who has, some self-esteem issues about themselves and they give themselves to me, I may not look at them how they want me to look at them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Y'all did what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And therein lies the trap of so many people who view sex as a tool to get something,
Right.
Mhm.
and not
Right.
just for pleasure's sake, but it's a transactional thing.
Right.
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 Yeah.
I feel like sexuality is one of the most vulnerable things that we share with another. And vulnerable, the word itself translates to woundable. So there's in any act where we're really showing ourselves
I
in,
mean, talk about getting naked. It's the
yeah,
ultimate showing yourself.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so, yeah, so there's a chance we could get hurt. And so there's this, intimacy is made up of vulnerability, presence, and trust. And so we all really, at our core, we all really want to be seen. We want to be loved. We want to be seen for who we are. We want to be cherished. Yet so many of us are afraid to be vulnerable and to share ourselves in that way. But sexuality is sort of this like, kind of like accepted way to share ourselves and to be vulnerable. And so it might be getting misused a lot in that way where it's like, well, if I share my sexuality with somebody, then they're going to see the true me, the full essence of me, the divine me, and I'm going to get my need met of being seen and acknowledged and cherished.
yeah.
And but when it's being done from a sort of like, if I give that, I'll get this,
Mhm.
rather than from a place of presence. Like if we're missing the boat on intimacy with the other pillars of intimacy, which are presence and trust, trusting of oneself, then, that vulnerability could really kind of steer you in that direction of getting hurt again.
Mm.
So it's a really important, I feel like, when you're heading toward wanting deeper union and deeper relationship with your own sexuality and with intimacy, to build a strong relationship of trust with yourself. Because
Mhm.
if you trust yourself deeply, which means for me, it means I trust that I can come back to my home, my center, my essence, no matter what happens outside of me. I'll be able to come back to my essence. And so that level of trust then allows me to get intimate with anyone that I choose to get intimate with, because I can then trust myself with them. It's not like, yeah, I trust them, but only because I trust myself so deeply. And so that sort of cycle of vulnerability and trust that starts to build between two people automatically brings in presence. And that presence is where the curiosity is born from, and where we get to just explore without a lot of end goals in mind.
Yeah, I think this is where like the healing comes back in, because a lot of people give to get.
Mm.
So some men might give favors and buy presents and do all these extra things because they're attracted to a woman. And so they're kind of tying themselves up to a pretzel, trying to be whatever he thinks she's gonna like. And so he helps with all this stuff, right? He's kind of has the disease to please. And women do the same thing. We might give to get by giving sex, and by leading with desire me here. I'll like you said, Mark, like I'll just give myself to you, and we do that in the hopes that we'll be loved. But
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't
Right.
always get us the love that we're
No,
seeking in
no.
either direction.
Right.
And so that's because we're not really being ourselves. We're
Your true
pretending to be
selves.
what
Yeah.
our true selves.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
pretending to be what we think that person will like. We're
Right.
Right.
pretending to be what we think that person will love. No one
Right.
can ever fall in love with that because it's inauthentic. If
Correct.
you want love, you have to be yourself, because that's the only way love happens.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, then you have to think about, well, who can I be myself around? If you look towards your friends, they already like you. Maybe date your friend pool. And maybe consider, if you're always chasing 8 and 9s and 10s, maybe you need to see what kind of relationship you would have if you were with a 6 or 7. If
And
you're
that's
always
not the
rating
arousal skill
people's
she's talking
attraction.
about.
No, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Just
And
ignore
see,
it.
Um,
that's why I was saying, you know, people have to learn how to love themselves
Yes.
despite it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To up
And
level
I
completely
mean,
your whole life.
and
Yeah.
the garbage will take care of itself once you start
It will.
accepting, number one, accepting who you are, and number two, appreciating who the hell you are.
Yeah.
Everybody, hey, people are going to either accept it or walk away from it, because when you walk in your authentic self, there is no option C. People
Right.
are going to either accept it or not accept it.
And the other thing that is true is that when you stand in that place and you have self-respect and you look in the mirror and you like who's staring back at you and you see your value and you see and feel your trustworthiness and who you show up in the world. And when you really care for that, you attract other people into your life who are going to see that. You become a magnetic force field, and you're able to, I mean, this was true for me when I did that work. Is my job and my career changed. I ended up moving to a different state. I attracted a whole new group of amazing friends. The quality of men that I started to date like skyrocketed. I made more money. So many incredible things happen when you take yourself on that transformational ride. And your whole life upgrades. It's such a worthy use of your time, is to learn how to deeply love, appreciate, and respect yourself.
And one of the beautiful things about the tantric path is it gives you so many tools to do that.
Get there.
It gives you the how to. It really is like a step-by-step process that you can, walk the journey of. And guess what? It never ends.
Right. We need to brush
always
ongoing,
more.
right?
We need to brush up on that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the things that we take women through. We're taking a group of women actually to Greece in October and helping them discover that journey and giving them real pathways, real tools, real practices to discover how to really be in their body, how to make peace with being a sensual, sexual, desirable creature that is in touch with her pleasure, that is in touch with her worth, that is in touch with who she is giving birth to in this chapter in her life. And we've got women at all different stages of life who are ready to up level who they want to see themselves as and to be in deeper connection with that divinity that dwells within. So, we're excited to take that pilgrimage.
Yeah, if any of your female listeners are interested, Mark, just send them over to us. We'd be happy to talk to them if they want to journey with us to Crete, to the ancient island of Greece, where the primordial goddess still lives quite alive and reigns. So it's going to be a really powerful, magical experience for all the women who are coming.
That's what's up, man. I just have a question about your podcast, the Sex Reimagined Podcast. Is there any off-limit conversations that you guys?
Not really. That's a good question. No,
Yeah,
we kind of
haven't
talk about all
discovered
of
that
it.
Man,
Yeah, I'm trying to think, would there be anything off limit? I mean, I think anything that
We
was
don't talk about politics.
Yeah, we
That's
don't
pretty
talk
off
about
limits.
politics. I think anyone that was like promoting abuse, we would push very hard
We
against
wouldn't.
that.
Yeah.
But we talk about kink and BDSM and the latest research and the anatomy of
Sex
arousal.
toys,
Yeah,
anal play, all of the
right.
things.
We're
We're
go far.
reimagining, baby.
Yeah. We really want to
Yeah.
reimagining is also really about also sex positivity.
Yeah.
How can we
okay.
what if we could learn how to be comfortable in our sexuality enough that we weren't passing on the teachings of guilt, fear, and shame that most of us were raised with? And it's our part in trying to eliminate that energy from sexuality because
Yeah, I think, one of the great values of listening to a podcast like ours is that it does start, like we talk about this shit all the time. So it's so normal to us and we're just pretty relaxed about it. And so it really helps to listen to people who are really comfortable talking about sex. It helps to open up your mind and the synapses in your brain that might say, oh, talking about sexuality is shameful, wrong, or bad. but just listening, and it's free. So why not? Why not open up the pathways in your brain to experience that it is okay. It is
Yeah,
okay
just
to
have it
talk about sex.
normalized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Dr. Willow, Miss Leah,
Yeah.
Sex Reimagined Podcast. How can people contact you guys?
They can go to our Instagram or they can check out our YouTube, Sex Reimagined. They can go to our website, sexreimagined.com. They can go to my personal website, drwillowbrown.com. They can go to Leah's personal website, Leah. It's moreloveworks.com. And I mean, yeah, there's just so many ways. Just send us an email, support@sexreimagined.com. We'd love to chat with you.
I've learned quite a bit in this short hour.
What's one of the things that you really learned, Mark, that you're going to take home?
That for me, I have to, I want to explore getting to know my wife's body more in a deeper way, and she likes to think that I'm like King Kong, I just want her, and it's not that, I like the journey. I like the journey, right? But I just want to, I think I want to learn staying in the moment and enjoying the journey and not just make it physical.
Right.
Have
Beautiful.
more emotional, piece in that whole process.
Yes, I love that. There's something so beautiful when you marry the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the sexual.
Yeah.
And it's just creates such a stronger connection, a deeper union. Everybody walks away so much more fulfilled.
Cool.
Ladies, it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. And I would like for you to stick around for a couple of seconds after we end it. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross Radio podcast. I'm sorry. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. Just take charge of your life and do something about it. With that being said, we're out.